Welcome to the Electrician Growth Show. This is the place we bring on owners of electrical contracting businesses. We talk to them about their stories, their lessons, and how they got to where they are here today. If you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, head over to YouTube. There's a bunch of information in the description. You can go to our website and you can apply through there. We'll reach out and you could be on the show next. But guys, today we have Jason Rader out of California. Jason, how's it going?
Good. How's everybody?
Good, good. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. I think just kicking things off, please just introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and how did you get started?
Uh, well, second generation electrician, learned from my father. My name is Jason Rader. I've been an electrician for 25 years. I strive to provide high quality electrical work for my customers, and I don't like hearing no. So when I hear no, I just keep going and going and going, and I'm very persistent. So
Okay, beautiful,
I
amazing.
used to be a door knocker, and I worked at DirecTV, and I worked at multiple other companies, and taking little bits from other companies and then just putting it together and just building my own platform, and now I'm pretty successful with what I do.
Okay, amazing. It sounds like you got into like, the electrician business, early on. It sounds like your father, second generation business owner. But so after school when you were younger, what did you do for work? Like, did your dad kind of just get you right into it, or did you start doing door knocking before you were introduced into your father's business?
At the age of 13, I worked at a hobby store. So I messed around with remote control cars, gas powered cars, helicopters, airplanes, you name it. And then that jumped me into a program where I worked at a car stereo shop. From the car stereo shop, I got an opportunity. Somebody came in and said, "Hey, you're really good at what you do. Would you be interested in working for DirecTV?" And
Hmm.
this was at the time where contractors were getting hired from DirecTV, and I was in house. And then I worked there for about maybe 3.5 years. I loved it so much to the point where they saw the potential that I had, and they said, "Hey, your numbers are really good. You're always constantly being on the board." And there was a board of the top 10 technicians, and I was anywhere between 3 and 5.
Mm.
And so when those numbers kept on staying persistent, I just kept on doing my job, showing up to work with a giant, huge Kool-Aid smile. Even though that sometimes, you don't feel like you want to be at work, I still smiled. And I
Yeah.
showed up, outperformed. And then they gave me an opportunity where I became a service technician. And then from there, I was working the LA division. So I was working in Los Angeles for about 2 years. And then from there, I met some very famous, interesting people that just opened up my eyes, and just I realized, I don't need to be working for somebody else. I need to
Mm,
be working for myself. And
mm.
from there on out, that's when structured wiring came along. And here I am today.
Okay. So sounds like, you were doing door knocking, you met some interesting individuals, you got promoted to being a service technician, and then you were kind of introduced to entrepreneurship. So it sounds like you didn't really get into it through your father. You met some other people, and then you're like, you know what, this is a better route. I can do my own thing, have some more freedom. So what was the first business you started? Because it sounds like the first thing you tried isn't what you're currently doing now.
No. Yeah. So the first business that I started was I was working at a car stereo shop.
Oh,
And
okay, okay.
yeah,
I see.
so I was 18 years old in high school. Well, just got out of high school, and I was working full time as a car stereo technician. And then
Yeah.
from there, it branched out to somebody came in and saw my potential on what I can do. And they saw that that I learned pretty fast and I'm pretty
Mm.
quick, and I'm real good with customers. And then from there, they hired me right on the spot. I,
Okay.
I I remember my interview only took like maybe 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and then the guy was like, "When can you start?" And
Yeah.
and that was my first real job really, was, the car stereos, and then immediately jumping into DirecTV.
Yeah. So, what was the first business that you started as an entrepreneur?
My first business that I started as an entrepreneur, doing low voltage communication, and then it branched out to be an electrician.
Okay. And then when you started to, go to your electrician path, diving into what you're currently doing now, did you instantly pick up what your father was doing, or did you start your own electrical business and then eventually transition to where you are now?
Um, I was doing electrical work many years for a long time, and I was very stubborn. My dad's hard. I'm hard headed, and my dad was, very persistent on trying to get me to follow his lead. And
Yeah.
I just, for some reason, I just didn't want to do it. But
Yeah.
fathers are always right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
here I am doing exactly what he's doing.
Yeah. And then, so did you eventually take over your father's business, or are you
No,
still in competition? So you.
no, I'm doing my own.
Oh, okay.
Completely doing my own.
Okay, completely understand. So then that's when you started your when did you start it? It sounds like you've been doing it for 25 years now?
No, I've been doing it for 20 years now.
For 20 years. Okay, perfect. So you started it around early 2000s, 2006. And then I guess, how did that kind of grow? Like, how did you start that out? Like, did you start like grassroots from nothing? What were you doing to grow the business when you first started?
Basically, like I said, when I was working for DirecTV, I set aside an agenda where I wrote down all my customers' phone numbers and names and their addresses, and
Mhm,
I falled back. I
mhm,
picked up that book and started calling every single one of them and
mhm,
asking them, "Hey, do you guys need any work? Is there anything I can do? Like." There's gotta be something that I can do to help around the house, and then one thing led from another, and like I said, I met some pretty famous, interesting people, and that right there just got me going full time.
okay, I see. I'm curious because you keep on bringing up these really interesting people that you met. Like, are these people that we would know, like their household names, or are these people who are just, they're popular in California?
So the coach from the Lakers, Dal Harris,
Okay.
yeah, this was a while ago.
Yeah.
So I went to his house, I fixed the satellite dish up on the roof, I never even went into the house.
Yeah.
I showed up in a DirecTV van. I walked around the backyard and the guy was like, "Oh my God, I had 3 guys here. They couldn't figure this out." And so
Mm,
I climbed up on the roof. I relocated the satellite dish, got everything all hooked up properly, the way I do things.
mhm,
And then from there, the guy was saying, like, man, he's like, I've had 3 technicians here at this house, all
mm,
from the same company that couldn't figure this out. And it was basically a line of sight issue. And then the way that they secured it to the property, it wasn't really bolted in as it should have been.
mm,
And so, I have OCD when it comes to my work. So basically, I just ripped the whole thing down and redid it my way, got it
mm,
all hooked up. And this is when they had the internet when it first came out. They had satellite internet through Direct Star, Direct Way.
mm,
And so DirecTV had that new program. And so I fixed everything. And then he's like, "Oh my God, I need to introduce you to my boys." And I had no clue who this guy was or who his boys were. And when I went into the house and I walked into the office and I took a look around, I was like, "Holy crap.
yeah,
Your boys are the Lakers." And then that right there just that literally I was famous overnight just with this gentleman. And
that's
from
pretty awesome.
from one Lakers home to another Lakers home to like 19 of them, like
Yeah,
within 3 years, I started working on their homes as a subcontractor, doing little things here and there, changing out outlets,
yeah,
hanging chandeliers, fixing service calls, small things.
yeah,
And then I got into like hanging TVs and then that just blew me up to the point where like I'm like scratching my head. I'm like, why am I working for other people when I can keep doing this on my own? And then
yeah.
that's how I
You've made
branched off.
business, you've built your relationships, like, you can totally just do this on your own and pocket the extra change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I stayed consistent, and like I said, like I have this for every year on the year, I always write my customer's first name. I do everything old school. So I always get a book, a pen, and write everything down.
Mhm,
So I have the agenda. I write everything down. I go from their name, their address, and then I put a little hashtag. How did they find me? Was it Yelp? Was it Google? Was it Facebook? Was it,
mhm,
Marketplace?
mhm,
Anything, and every month on the month, I always fall back and call my customers, whether, if it's electrical plug that they need fixed, I
mhm,
call them up and just say, "Hey, I know it's been a month or 2 months. I'm just checking in." Cause
mhm.
that's what I do. I like to make sure my clients are happy.
Yeah,
You got happy customers, your phone won't stop ringing because they will call back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to circle back a little bit on the story where, you met the coach of the Lakers and all this stuff, and he introduced you to everybody on the team, and you had all this book of business. And I think that just goes to show how important it is to make sure you do a really good job every single time because you have no idea who you're actually servicing. And if you blow them away like you did, you say, "Oh my God, I've tried to fix this forever. Some people came, you're the first person to do it." And then boom, a channel opened up and you just got 20 extra clients. And it
Yeah.
sounds like something you're really good at is nurturing those clients and staying in contact and, being friendly and building that client relationship. Because, sometimes, people have a bad day and they're really not feeling it, or they're hungover, or they argued with their wife and they're just like, I don't want to be super detail oriented right now. I'm not going to focus on the small nuances. And they don't do the best job, but that could have been that opportunity that you ran into when you had the Lakers coach. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that's correct. 100%. Yeah,
Okay.
because it was funny because I was like, I got a dispatch from the office and they're like, "Hey, we need you." And I'm like, "All right, where are you at? What's the address?" And I mapped it out with the Thomas guide. I looked around and figured it out, and I drove to where I needed to go because sometimes when you use like GPS, it gives you the detour through the city, and I'm looking for the quickest and the easiest route. When you're working for the cable company, you want to find your quickest way there.
Yeah.
And so I showed up, I walked around the side gate, I walked around the back, and not to mention this house was gigantic. So
Yeah.
I show up, I go in the backyard, and then I go up on the roof, and I'm up on the roof for about 2.5, maybe 3 hours fixing everything. And then I look over, and then on the ladder, there's this guy going, "Hey, what's going on?" Apparently you're like the third guy here. You're like, "Why'd you move my dish?" I'm like, "Well, you had a line of sight issue. If I'm going to fix this correctly, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to move the dish to a solid place where I feel secure that the wind's not going to mess with it, over the time that, your fascia board's not going to move around and it's not going to
Mhm.
come undone. That way, you're not having any line of sight issue.
Mhm.
Long story short, I don't like callbacks. So,
Yeah.
I got to the point where like he was on the ladder and I told him like it wasn't safe for him being on the ladder, but he went up anyways. And I started talking to him on the edge of the roof. And I'm like, when I get done, sir, I'll go down and I'll talk to you. And he's like, "I want you to come inside and make sure everything inside is correct."
Nice.
And I'm like, "Okay." And it was funny because like not a lot of customers will go up a ladder, like 30 feet in the air to check out their satellite dish. But this guy he was kind of determined, like figure out what the heck's going on.
Yeah.
So, he popped his head up, he asked me what I was doing, and I got friendly with him. He asked me if I wanted water because I was pretty thirsty, and I said, "Heck yeah!" And I took the bottle of water, and right there, that opened up that opened up that line of communication where he was like, "Hey, this kid's friendly, and he knows what he's doing. He looks thirsty." And I
Yeah.
went inside. I used his bathroom. I got a glass of water, and then I went into his office. And then when I went into his office, I was like, "Oh, these are your boys."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then from there, doors just started opening up.
Yeah.
And
That's amazing.
here I am, 20 years later, loving life, man.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. So, it sounds like one of the biggest things that, you're into as an entrepreneur and as an electrician is that customer experience, that customer relationship, and making sure that they're satisfied. Like I said, I hate getting callbacks. I'm very detail oriented. So, how what are some things that you've learned, and how do you build those client relationships, and how do you make sure that that customer experience is the best that it could be for the people that you work with?
My best advice on something like that is customers pay attention to the details,
Uh,
period. They're watching you. Whether if you don't think they're not watching you, they are watching you. You know,
yeah.
you walked into their home, you're on their schedule. So everything I do, I put out blankets, I wear shoe booties if I can. I take off my shoes. I'm very polite. I say yes, sir. No, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Um, I put blankets on everything, whether if it's the counter, whether if it's the floor. I put up plastic to cover up everything. Long story short, man, like when I'm doing work, I don't need my client cleaning up my mess.
Mhm.
So, And then while I'm doing it, while they're asking me questions, I'm smiling, I'm engaging with them, I'm talking to them. But I try to keep it simple, because some customers will talk your ear off, and I get it, they're looking for somebody to talk to and hang out with. But at the end of the day, is like I'm trying to get in and get out. That way I can go back home to my family and, take care of my daughters. I have two
Yeah,
daughters. So they come first. And
yeah.
so right now it's like I'm doing everything and anything to train my younger daughter. She's 17. She graduates in a few days, and she's third generation electrician. She's
Mhm.
taken over the business.
Amazing. So, taking it back to the customer experience lessons, it sounds like the biggest things that you really focus on is making sure that you're being clean. You don't want your customers cleaning up after you. You want to be very polite, use, thank yous, yes sir, no ma'am, etc. But the biggest thing you mentioned there is focusing on the small details because they will actually pay attention and they will
Yeah.
notice.
Oh yeah.
You're in their space, and I feel like some people they believe is that like you're like, oh, I'm an electrician. I went to school. I've been doing this for years, so like they're not gonna notice the very small details that I might notice because they're not an electrician. But as you mentioned, it's like they will notice.
Yeah.
So one more thing that I want to quickly bring up here is you mentioned when you started, a big thing that you were doing is you were calling up all your old customers and everybody that you had on your book. Is that still something that you're doing now to generate your business?
Yes.
Okay. And I mean, it must be working for you because I feel like most electricians, they're not very like nurturing. Like they're very like word of mouth referral. Maybe some people are running some ads, doing some social media content. But do you only do calls? Is that like the only thing that you're doing?
Yeah, so you have to engage with your clients. You have to pick up the phone. You have to give them a call. Be
Yeah.
friendly with them because some people want a friend.
Hmm.
So call them up, check in with them. Every 3 months, every 90 days.
Hmm.
Whether or not they told you no, still call them. Yeah, even they say, "Hey, dude, you're awesome. I love you. You don't need to call me. Hey, you know what, dude? In 90 days, I'm still gonna call you again because who knows what might happen. Their friend may need electrician. Their
Yeah.
their daughter may need something.
Yeah.
A family friend may need something, and you being persistent and
Hmm.
them constantly getting that notification. You're constantly engaging with that client.
Hmm.
They're gonna refer you, and it happens. And so I'll fall back on like on my book. I have a book for every year, and I make sure that it on the beginning of the agenda it says what year it is. And even if it's a few years old, I'll still pick it up and I'll make phone calls.
Hmm.
And I have multiple books. And so I'm constantly calling my customers. So, but now that my kids are a little bit older, they made it a little bit easier. So they broke down all the names and addresses and phone numbers all in spreadsheets. And
Hmm.
so I don't really use the book anymore. I just have the computer tell me who am I calling today,
That's good.
you know? And the days that I'm slow is the days that I'm on the phone calling,
Mhm.
you know,
Are you making calls almost every day now?
every day.
Every single day. How many
Yeah.
calls a day would you say you're doing?
About
Curious.
well, about 12 calls per day.
12 calls per day. Okay. So
Yeah.
it's sustainable. It's not like you're like sitting down doing 6 hours of calls, calling everybody you ever
No.
worked with.
No,
Oh,
because one call could take 10 minutes, one call could take 2 minutes, one call could take an hour. You
yeah.
never know. And so I try to be persistent, fall back with a lot of people.
Mhm,
And I always tell my customers like I'm hungry, man. I don't care, what's going on. Let me know if you got something small or big and
mhm,
keep me in mind. I'm like, do you need me to mail you out a flyer or the newest business card or like I
mhm,
print out t-shirts and hats for my clients,
mhm.
the good customers, like I just say, "Hey, what's your t-shirt size? And do you want a fitted hat or not? I'll mail you one out."
Yeah.
And that's a token appreciation because if that person's wearing it, that's
Mhm.
just free advertisement for me.
Yeah.
And I paid about $11.25 per t-shirt, and I buy
Mhm,
about 500 shirts at a time. And then
yeah.
I buy maybe about 50 baseball caps. And then good customers that hired me in the past, like more than 3 times, I'll mail them out a t-shirt and a hat. And they
Mhm.
always tell me, they're like, oh my God, Rader, your shirt is amazing. Every time I go to Home Depot, everyone asks me, hey, can you help me out with this? And it's true because when I'm at Home Depot standing in the electrical aisle,
Yeah.
everyone asks me, "Hey, can you help me out with some advice?" And
Yeah.
and just be nice, man. Give them the advice because you don't know what their day is, if they're dealing with a problem of their own,
Yeah.
they're upset with something or they're just frustrated because they just can't figure something out. And then you point it out, hey, this is your problem. You need to do this and this and this.
Yeah.
And my thing is like for me, it's a sales pitch, like at the end of the day, like I'm always trying to sell myself. Do you need my services? I'll come out and help you. Here's my phone number. If not, just give me a call or FaceTime me and I'll walk you through the problem.
Yeah.
Just be a nice guy.
Yeah, and that goes back to the whole customer experience thing with, like, the shirts and being a nice guy and just being I think it's just, like, genuinely caring about the person you're helping. Like you said, it's like
Yeah.
you're gonna go to Home Depot and they have a problem, and it's like you're just gonna help them,
Yeah.
right? And, like, you're not gonna, like, gatekeep information so then they have to hire you, or you're not gonna make
No,
it
there's no point for
complicated.
gatekeeping on that. Just
Yeah,
help them, you know?
exactly, and then next
And then
time
if it gets to a point, who knows? They call you up and then next thing you know, you're in their house fixing their
yeah,
problem, making a little
exactly.
bit of money.
Or maybe you just give them awesome advice, you solve the problem they've been trying to solve forever, and you did it for completely for free, and they're like, "Man, this guy's super nice, he's the man. The advice he gave me was spot on." And then the next time that they're at a barbecue and their, cousin is having a problem with something electrical, they're gonna remember you, and they're gonna be like, "You know what? Call this guy Jason, he helped me out, he's the man." And then you just got another customer just because
Yeah,
you're doing the right
100%.
just because you're doing the
100%.
so we'll wrap this up here. I have a couple more questions for you, and then we'll finish this up. But over the past 20 years, what would you say have been some of the bigger challenges you've faced as a business owner?
Um, Working on homes that are difficult to get into areas. So,
Yeah.
when a customer says like, "Hey, we want to hire you to come over to our house and change out some stuff." I'm like, "Yeah, but furniture and your boxes and all kinds of other stuff need to be moved before I can get to it."
Mhm.
So, always, I like before I put boots on the ground, I always like my customer to say, "Hey, send me a quick video of what's going on in your home. Send me a picture of your panel. That way I can know what type of material I need to have on hand when I show up." I don't like running back to Home Depot back and forth. I always like to make sure that my truck is fully prepared. A lot of the customers say it's like my truck is literally Home Depot on wheels.
Yeah.
Um, so when I show up, I'm prepared. Um, I come with a giant, huge smile. I'm always happy, no matter what day it is.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, just homes that are not ready for you, just make
Yeah.
sure that you're fully prepared on what you're getting yourself into. Because when they say, hey, we need an EV charger installed in the garage, well, you got to move the 40 boxes in order for me to get to the wall and for me to figure out how to run that line to the panel. Or,
Yeah.
if you want me to change all 64 outlets in your house, just make sure all the furniture is completely moved away from the walls so I can
Mhm.
get to it, because that takes time out of your day.
Yeah. Yeah, completely understand. And so how many employees do you have? Is it just you? Are you a one-man crew, or do you have some people that are operating underneath you?
I have one guy named Gabriel Rivera. He's been working with me for about 11 years now.
Okay,
So
and
it's just me and him, and then my daughter's now joining the team.
that's amazing. And what does Gabriel do? I'm assuming he's going out in the field and he's completing jobs
No,
or
no, he works with me. So it's always a two-man duo. Anytime we do anything, it's always him and me. Whether if we're traveling around the US, because I got a few clients that will hire us to, go to a different state, and that's
oh,
pretty
wow.
fun,
Yeah,
and anytime we go to a different state, Gabriel's always interested in the nearest basketball game or the nearest football game,
that's
and
fun.
I take care of my guy. I make sure he's got food, clothing, every single tool that's on his tool belt. I paid for it. You know,
Yeah.
I'm taking time out of his life to come work with me, so why
Mhm.
not?
Yeah. That's awesome. So, I guess, what are your goals with the business? Like, what are you trying to do with it? Like, is it something that you're actively trying to grow? Are you kind of just studying it? Or are you really just trying to make it like a really solid foundationally business so then when your daughter wants to go take it over, it's ready? Like, what is your
Well,
vision of it?
the whole goal is for me to set something up that way she has a good platform to fall back on, with a
Mhm.
ton of clients that I have. Obviously the first few years that where we're working together, I'm going to be training her to the
Yeah.
point where she's familiar with she right now she's 17 and she's already familiar with everything.
Yeah.
Um So I've been training her and guiding her along the way and getting her to the point where she's working with 240, 120. She's all hands on in the panel right now. She always tells me, "Dad, just let me do the panel work. You run the wire." And I'm like, "Yeah, you give me the hardest part to do." And it's funny because like we butt heads and like when we're working on a customer's home, she's like, "Hey, you're not done yet. I've already finished the second room. Come on, dude, speed it up." She's
That's
like,
funny.
part of the
That's
team.
cute.
And I love it, man. What better way, to spend all the time that you can with your daughter?
Yeah. No, that sounds like it's really awesome. It's really, really cool. So, honestly, we'll wrap it up here. I'll have one last question for you, and then we'll go our separate ways. But if you could go back to day one, early 2000s, when you first started your contracting business, what's one thing that you would tell your younger self then?
Just to stay persistent and stay small for a few years. If you try to think about the future, it never pans out. Always worry about what you have in front of you now.
Hmm. Okay. Beautiful. Well, honestly, I think that's everything. That was a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to hop on the podcast. I guess if anybody wants to find you or your business online, where should they go to check it out?
You can follow me on Google, Instagram, um, Facebook. I have it all. So anything that if you go on Google and type in Jason Rader, I pop up, Huntington Beach, California. Right now, I just started up a new program called the Power Up Project for homeowners that can't afford electricians. A lot of homeowners are working from paycheck to paycheck and they'll have an electrical issue in the house. And I want to hear about your problem. So I'm helping homeowners out with their services. So I show up, money out of my pocket. I fix your services, and at the end of the day, all I want is a hug, and maybe if I can get a review, that's what I'm looking for. So it's a way for me to give back to my community and helping
Oh,
out one another.
wow. And it's free work. Like they're not paying anything.
They're
It's
not
just
paying. They're
you
not
are.
paying one dime. I pay for it.
That's amazing. That's awesome. That's extremely generous.
Yeah,
Well, good on you for that.
I
Well,
appreciate it, man.
I think that's everything. Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the podcast. And like I mentioned at the beginning, if you're interested in coming on the show and being a potential guest, you can reach out to me or you can fill out our form on our website. All the information is going to be in the description on YouTube. So head over there, reach out, and you could be on the podcast next. All right,
Okay.
Jason. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for
appreciate
coming
your
on.
time, man. Thank you.
Take care.